What's up, everyone? This is Go Long with Dunn and Monis, part of the Go Long Network, golongtd.com, the podcast fueled by our good friends at Fatty Beer Company. Nick, Chris, we love you. We thank you. We're going to be in-house, probably the Orchard Park location, maybe the Hamburg location. Maybe we hit them all up. We've got a long off season to drink a lot of beer and talk a lot of football. So be on alert for live shows. It was just a hell of a time when we did do it before the Bills-Bengals game and then even before the Bills-Packers regular season game. So thank you to Fatty. And also at Go Long, have a ton going on. Make sure you read the newsletter, get the emails, and consider becoming a VIP member, Jim, because we're going to be ramping up these happy hours at Go Long in a big, big way. Jamal Williams is unbelievable. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast or watching it, you probably caught Jamal the happy hour, the anime, the Farmer Fran references, the touchdown celebrations, which if Rihanna can do whatever Rihanna was doing up there, earmuffs, kids, touching herself and then smelling her fingers. It was, quite interesting for Rihanna, to put it mildly. Then how come Jamal Williams can't gyrate his hips after he scores a touchdown? Typical NFL hypocrisy, if you ask me. Jamal was fantastic. So, yes, the happy hours are exclusive to our VIP members now. You get the hoodie I'm wearing here right now. They just came in hot off the press from downtown Buffalo. Much better, not the screen printing that we did before, Jim. So people left and right were telling me how it started peeling off. So we did the same exact company, positive approach, downtown Buffalo, that helps out Dell in 26 shirts. So yeah, black hoodies, the Carolina blue Go Long logo right on it. You get that hoodie, you get a signed copy of the Blood and Guts, How a Tight End Save Football, and you get full happy hour access when you become a VIP member. The link is in the description on Apple, Spotify, golongtd.com. This week, I'm not going to announce it on the pod quite yet, but be on alert. We have an unbelievable guest for Friday night. One of my all-time favorite athletes to cover. He may or may not be a Green Bay Packer, and I may or may not have felt a magnetic pull toward this offensive lineman in his corner of the locker room because he just didn't give a shit. He told the truth, and I'd call him a fan favorite to some degree. So, yes, those happy hours are going to be in high volume through the regular season. So we'd love it if you consider becoming a VIP today. Thank you to everybody who's already done so. All right, that's my spiel, Jim. We've got some football to talk. Super Bowl 57. I almost went the Roman numeral route. We're going to stick to plain English here. Kansas City Chiefs, 38. Philadelphia Eagles, 35. We text during these games, not as much as I wish we did. But at halftime, I think we were texting what a lot of people were thinking, right? Eagles have this. What a shame. Patrick Mahomes isn't Patrick Mahomes. He had to be special for them to win this game. Now he's not special. And I think we're just kind of bracing for a ugly second half where he's just kind of quarantined in the pocket and can't really do a hell of a lot. Boy, were we all dead wrong. He is like Tom Brady in that regard. It doesn't matter what the hell's going on. It doesn't matter what he's going through. It doesn't matter what happens in the course of a game. He rises to the moment. There are such a small, select group of athletes in any sport, Jim, that just the bigger the moment, the higher the pressure. Like Jordan flu game stuff. Like the worse the situation is, these are the dudes who just make spectacular plays, spectacular moments. That was Patrick Mahomes. 13 of 14 in the second half. The one incompletion was a throwaway. Unbelievable. 2 passing touchdowns. The 26-yard run is the longest run of the year. I guess we start there, right, with a second half that nobody saw coming when everybody should have seen it coming.
Tyler, yes. That game took me through the emotions of don't ever bet on a quarterback who might be hurt. Because this is what happens. He is hurt. Game's over. I guess when I think about it real quick, I feel like it was almost like if he came out of the second half and showed life and wasn't shot putting the ball like Brock Purdy and Josh Johnson a couple weeks ago. He actually
Mm-hmm.
showed he could make some throws. It was almost like, okay, it gave the Chiefs that confidence to say, hey, we can still make plays. Then they score right away, and it was like, okay, he's going to be able to get us through this half on whatever he can do, however he's going to do it. He'll get us through to the best of his ability, and the rest of the team rallies around that. And that's football. That's emotions. That's the roller coaster ride that we talk about really every week, the week to week league of this, the crazy NFL. But okay, let me get my hot take out.
Ooh.
I gave you Andy Reid better than Bill Belichick if he would win this Super Bowl. So I'm going to stick with it. We'll see. It's debatable. I just wanted to bring it up.
We do
My
have to
new
get to
hot
Andy
take.
Reid because you were right on there.
Good. I want to get into that with your thoughts on that. But here it is. Tom Brady to me is Bill Russell. Patrick Mahomes is Jordan or LeBron, however you want to get into that argument. I won't get into it. That's it. Brady's going to be the greatest ever because I don't think Mahomes will ever get that many rings, right? So we're just going to say Brady's the greatest ever because he has this many rings. Just like Bill Russell has all these rings that really isn't realistic or comparable, but you don't want to take away from the dominance that he was. But pure talent, you're just basing the position on pure talent. Nobody's ever taking Bill Russell. And Tom Brady, he was the greatest quarterback ever, not the most talented quarterback ever, and he's not going to be the greatest ever. Patrick Mahomes, we're going to witness it. If he can stay healthy, right? All the big if, which to Tom Brady's credit is amazing. But if Mahomes stays healthy, we're just going to be along for the ride. Every AFC championship, it's either going to be Burrow and Mahomes or Lamar and Mahomes, Herbert Mahomes, Josh Allen Mahomes. Mahomes will be in it.
I like the comparison. I love the comparison, and it's absolutely true. I think it's got to be a little mortifying to be any other team in the AFC and watch this game, watch the Super Bowl. I mean, if Patrick Mahomes isn't going to win a Super Bowl, it's this one. It's when he is playing on a high ankle sprain, an injury that keeps players out several weeks, if not months, let alone a quarterback who relies on his athleticism and mobility and operating outside of the pocket and zigging and zagging. And we all remember the last Super Bowl when he's running for his life. I mean, it would have been this one. So if you're the Bills with Josh Allen, the Bengals with Joe Burrow, the Ravens with Lamar Jackson, the Chargers with Justin Herbert, the Dolphins with Tua Tagovailoa, I mean, go right down the list. Go right down the list. Any quarterback, any team. It's got to be pretty damn demoralizing to see Patrick Mahomes at 27. He's 27 years old. He's not going anywhere. I mean, he's on this lifetime contract that, yeah, they paid the quarterback, but it is, if you're going to go that, it is team friendly. He gets it. He's like Tom Brady that way. He understands it's about rings, right? Something that maybe some other quarterbacks over time, to their credit, get every dime you can, but there's a little sacrifice there. And they've got a smart GM. They've got a 64-year-old coach that, I mean, that retirement stuff was kind of silly before the game. Just talking to his buddy Jay Glazer, he ain't going anywhere. Yeah, they're set up for long-term success. It's just so funny. I laugh at these playoff games when the team loses. It doesn't matter who it is. It's instantly, whether it's the team social media accounts or Jim Nantz and Tony Romo after the 13-second game, or we watch these incredible playoff games, and what do we hear? Oh, they're going to be back next year, Jim. They're going to be back. Well, yeah, maybe, but Patrick Mahomes isn't going anywhere. You got to deal with this dude every year. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough because if he's doing this under these conditions, by the way, Jalen Hurts was unbelievable.
We're going to get into that.
We'll get into him later, but one of the best Super Bowl performances statistically ever, and it wasn't good enough. Yeah, I think that the Chiefs and Mahomes. I mean, I'm not telling people anything they don't know, but it's an all-time coach with an all-time quarterback, and I love the Russell Jordan comparison. It's like all these other quarterbacks. As much as we love them, we praise Allen for doing things we've never seen, Burrow for being that Joe Cool, Joe Montana, slice you and dice you. Right now, they're just a collection of Patrick Ewings and Hakeem Olajuwons and Karl Malones and Alonzo Mournings and Sean Kemps. They're just living in Mahomes' world right now.
That was good. You rolled off some good names right there.
Hey man, that's my heyday. Oh, I
Same
love
with me. Same with me.
I really wanted to sneak Brian Reeves in there, big country, but
you always have a little feel for it. You pull out some of the best like '90s basketball players I haven't thought of, I love that. Yeah, this is going to be.
We're not being prisoners of the moment, right?
No,
it's very easy the Monday after the Super Bowl to get caught up into the hype, but
no.
And please call us out if you think we're over the top here, everybody. But here's something I want to ask you, Jim, because we talked about it a little bit leading up to the game, and then it was magnified when he rolled that ankle again. We see Patrick Mahomes. He's on the bench. He's just writhing in pain. It looks like he just got shot on sight, didn't it? And just agonizing pain. He's just going to peel over. And we see him go to the locker room. We all assume he's just getting shots of Toradol and cortisone. And he said after the game, he didn't even get any treatment. He just retaped the ankle. Like he just rolled it really, really bad. Gets back out there, but in a weird, like spin zone-y way, the injury just forced him to be a pocket passer, stick with his reads. Not having Tyreek Hill all season kind of helped him in that department where if he's playing within the offense with Andy Reid, I mean, it's a different Mahomes, but maybe even a more dangerous Mahomes. I mean, he's seeing the field and he's not trying to do anything too crazy, right? He's not going to extend a play that doesn't need to be extended. And usually he does still make the play, like that flip to McKinnon earlier this year we've talked about. He still has made it, but he just wasn't even thinking about it because he's just playing within the offense. And when Andy Reid's dialing up, I mean, he was in Jonathan Gannon's head in the red zone. I mean, Kadarius Toney one direction, then Sky Moore the other, and the back-to-back touchdowns. It was, Doug Peterson told Andy Reid how they over pursue, right? They're buddies. I think I heard this today, and he told, hey, like this is a defense that's going to over pursue, and Andy Reid took advantage of it. So Patrick Mahomes he just changes his game, just becomes like a prototypical smart pocket passer. And that's what's scary too, is like he can just be a normal quarterback and still be the best quarterback in football, let alone being healthy and, zigging and zagging and turning the field into his own maze. But did you think that helped him in a weird way? Because, I mean, they were unstoppable. The second half, they were unstoppable, and they ran the ball a little bit more. Pacheco, McKinnon, there was balance. They get the big return. It almost forced him to be a more disciplined player.
Yes. You can't ever say that he can do whatever you need him to do, I guess, is what we're finding out. To me, it's just what it says. Like, hey, if I have to go this way, I can go this way too. But at the end of the day, you can never take the playmaker out of somebody. But certainly he understood, hey, we're going to have to call certain plays. You're going to have to get rid of the ball in this amount of time, blah, blah, blah. However they set that up at halftime, it's just, to perfection. Like, hard to believe everything we sit there and talk about. I don't think we're over the top, like talking about this caught in the moment. Like you said, I don't think we are either. Like I make those jokes about hot takes, but I actually believe them. I'm ready to take on the abuse on Reid better than Belichick. I'm ready to take on Mahomes, and Brady. I'm good with it because I'm confident what we watch talent wise. I never thought. Whoever thought we'd see better shooters than Larry Bird? And Larry Bird, I watch those. He looks like it takes him 10 minutes to get a 3-pointer off. Steph Curry can hit 5 in the time it takes him to shoot 1. And I love Larry Bird. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to take away from him. I'm just saying how these guys evolve, how the game evolves, and the athletes evolve. Patrick Mahomes, I just don't even know what we're watching. Like we don't see this guy on tape in college. And by the way, and that game had a college feel to it last night. I thought it was going to be a straight. It just had that college, like this is going to be up and down. But that goes to show you how, like, when quarterbacks are that talented, just like in basketball, when the offense is on, it doesn't matter how good a defense you play. You're not stopping that guy. I will always believe that when the offense is that talented and that on. When Kobe Bryant's on, he's getting 80. You can be whoever you want. You're not defending him. And last night, those defenses weren't bad defenses last night. Those are good defenses. Well, Eagles are number one in the NFL. They're one of the top defenses.
But kind of another case of who do they play? I mean, when you really look at their schedule and break it down game
No
to
doubt.
game, you can pick it apart.
But they have talent.
They do. Yeah, I don't want to minimize it. I mean, they had
I'm with you.
78 sacks and then nothing in this game. So
Now, against a quarterback who couldn't move.
also, I think it does tell you, though, that sacks are kind of a quarterback stat because even though he couldn't move, man, he was getting the ball out. He knew where the pressure was coming. He was so sharp against their pressure. The
Tyler,
feel for the pocket.
I think the important stat to pay attention to that I pay attention to is the percentage of sacks. They call sack percentage, and they have it on offense and defense. And I think you pay attention. I pay attention to those more than the actual number of sacks because sack percentage shows you, it gives you a good idea of, hey, they're not getting to the quarterback. Like they're not finishing the drill. And it's just a good way to offset if you want to just get rid of total number of sacks, something like
I
that.
love that. You made a really good point on just there's athletes in any sport that just force the sport to evolve. And it was a lot of fun in this book over my shoulder. Like Tony Gonzalez was at tight end. He just forced scouts and coaches to just wrap their head around a different type of player, a 6'4" basketball power forward who is too small to get to the NBA. But he times up his rebounds and he's getting off his jump shot against those people in the paint, and then you put him on a football field and he's unstoppable. I mean, to the extreme, that's Patrick Mahomes, right? He is forcing the game to evolve because he just isn't. He's playing the position in ways we've never seen, and he's just turned the position into this interpretation of his own making, of this combination of sports. It was really fun looking back at a story I did at Bleacher Report, and I kind of worked it into my story today where, I mean, he played everything growing up. We know his dad was a professional baseball player, obviously. And when he's a little kid, what's that?
Patrick was a hooper too.
Yeah, I'm getting to that. Oh my
I
God.
know, yeah.
Unbelievable basketball player. But, with the baseball, I remember his godfather, LaTroy Hawkins, who played with Pat Sr. with the Twins. He said how Pat Jr.'s out there, I mean, not even a teenager, maybe he's 9, 10, just catching pop-ups from big league players. He's not afraid of the ball hitting him in the face. He's just calmly catching it. Like little things like that. And then he gets into high school, he has a wooden bat in these tournaments with his buddies, and he just looks at Coleman Patterson, one of his best friends, and says, I'm going to try hitting lefty. I've never done it before. Steps up to the plate, just blasts it. Home run, hitting lefty. Why not? Basketball, his high school basketball coach just put it perfectly. And the way he described his basketball game is exactly how Patrick Mahomes plays football. Like on a basketball court, he was so adept at like baiting a double team or a triple team. Like he could just kind of dribble to an area of the court and bring people in. And then he could see the entire court, see where everybody was, and know exactly where he had to go with the ball. Like that's how he plays quarterback. Like he's out there luring your defenders to go a certain direction, whether it's your D linemen, your linebackers, your DBs. He gets you kind of moving and swaying and shifting, and he knows exactly where the vacancy is going to be on the football field. I mean, he's and the literal manner in which he throws is obviously really similar to baseball. I mean, any possible arm angle, he's throwing it. Golf, he's on the 10th hole in Tyler, Texas, with his buddies. The hole's 310 yards away, just right over the tree line, almost gets it all the way there. It blasts a cart of the group that's up near the hole. they look back, oh, it's Patrick Mahomes. He's just a natural where, yes, he had the dad bod and his college teammates are making fun of him and they're telling him to go eat another cheeseburger and they're calling him fat and chubby and he doesn't look like an athlete at all. Yeah, he's just such a natural talent that he just figures it out. He's a maniacal competitor. I mean, Coleman said another story where they're in Nashville just a few years ago, throwing axe, those hatchet and hot places. and he lost the first game, and he just said he got pissed. And he ran the table. Just beat everybody because there's like a little trophy you could take home. He needed a little trophy. So he's a freak. I mean, the stories you hear about Patrick Mahomes, eerily similar to Tom Brady's stories, right? All the legendary tales from the Bay Area to Michigan to New England. It's Jordan stuff. It's just that rare, maniacal, competitive fire that isn't going to just go out. His worst season, Jim, it's crazy when you think about this. Patrick Mahomes' worst season as a pro is when he lost in overtime of the AFC Championship game. That's his worst season. He hasn't had a bad season. He's been the most dominant player in the sport from the word go. I think if he were to retire today, if Patrick Mahomes just quits today, he's the third best quarterback ever behind Brady in Montana.
Would you calm down trying to get? No, I'm just kidding.
I'm lead.
I'm
I'm
kidding.
lead.
I'm kidding.
I'm
I'd actually
gradually.
say,
I'm leading to the 2017 draft. Right? Sorry.
no, I'm kidding. I'd actually just say he's the best ever. The heck with it. But
Yeah. Why
I
not?
will say this: every time we talk about how great that 17 draft was, and proud can be, man. The whole NFL, the Cleveland Browns had the first pick of that draft.
Mm. Every
Everybody missed.
team. Every
Every team.
team.
Well, plenty of people had chances.
They
I
really
mean, I
did.
just think about look. My point of that was as great as that 17 draft was, and then the Bills turned it into and used the ammo to get Josh Allen. It probably doesn't equal just drafting Mahomes.
Right. Right. I mean, Hakeem
I still
Olajuwon
say
was a
that
hell of a
not knowing.
pick, and Charles
Yeah,
Barkley
we
was a
still
hell of
don't
a
know.
pick.
That still changes a lot of things. I mean, so much has to happen, and we can get into that another time. But what a perfect situation Kansas City is for Patrick Mahomes.
So when Terry Pagula is watching the Super Bowl, you were in those meetings with him leading up to this draft.
Yeah,
You knew
we
how much
talked.
he
I know
loves
it.
Patrick Mahomes. What do you think is running through his mind when it comes to this
Oh, he's.
football stuff?
I would think he might be just tired of it.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it still blows my mind that he was the one
And
person who knew. He knew. He knew.
anybody that's around him that's watching a Super Bowl because that's probably a family friend type. They it's documented. I'm sure they've heard it. He may bring it up just to make sure they remember. Just
He
you guys
should.
know I did. Yeah, you guys know I did want to draft.
Oh man. Okay, so Chiefs. Mahomes is a god. We've established that. There's nothing he can't do. He can walk on water. He's
Good on
insane.
him.
What
Yep.
about that 26-yard run too? I mean, I've watched that so many times. He makes it look so easy, but there are so many quarterbacks when they're just submerged by five green jerseys like Mahomes was, they freak out or they turn
Mm-hmm.
the wrong way. It's either a sack or they're brought down. I mean, he had to know to hit the gas and take off exactly when he did, or Hassan Reddick just trips him up. The timing. That's what it's about in these clutch moments. The timing of his decision making. It's God. He's maybe that's really what everybody missed, right? The decision making. I mean, he knows what to do and when to do it, whereas some of these other elite quarterbacks are still prone to what's going to happen in this spot. Maybe get a little helter skelter. Um, so Andy Reid is obviously the other side of this equation. On the podcast, when I was in Phoenix, you had the take that he is the greatest coach of all time with the Super Bowl win. He just coached his best game ever. Really was masterful. Has to be right up there. I
Yeah,
think that
it's
you have a lot of
funny.
people agreeing with you that might have disagreed when they heard that.
At least it's. I mean, like I said, I believe it, but obviously we can. There's no right answer, but I just at least want to make sure we understand what he's accomplished. That first half, though, they weren't great offensively in that first half, regardless of his ankle. They weren't. They made it look easier in the second half than they did the first half. And I was shocked. We text each other that Andy Reid kicked that field goal, and he
Oh, that
missed
was
it.
egregious.
Tyler, for me, so I'm sitting there saying, man, I'm going to eat my words. Like I'm sitting there trying to put this guy, in that on that level of coach.
Not only that, but I mean, if we're going to nitpick Andy Reid here, I mean, that was bad to kick a field goal and then it
It
hits the
just made no
crossbar.
sense. It didn't feel right at all, did it? Like
It didn't.
what's 3 points in this game?
But also to go up 8 after the Sky Moore touchdown, right? You kick the extra point
And thought about
you
going for
go up
nine.
8,
Go up
right?
9.
Go for 9. Make it a 2-score game at that point. I mean, Jalen
It's
Hurts came right down, scored, 2-point conversion, tie ball game. I get it. Hindsight 2020, ifs and buts, all
so
that stuff. But that's something that all coaches should do. Because if you kick the extra point, I mean, maybe Sirianni goes for 2 to win the game. I doubt it.
that's what I was going to say. I swear to you, that's exactly what I thought.
You
That's
think
what I was
so?
going to say. I think he would have done it. I think he said to heck with it because I don't think he could have been stopped. They knew it. They couldn't stop him.
But then Philly can't stop Kansas City. Then so just go for 2 yourself and end the game.
I'm with you on that too. I
Yeah.
would have been okay with that.
It is weird. I mean, I have killed Sean McDermott for that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. And I guess he was with Andy Reid. It's just weird that Andy Reid is so sharp schematically and just innovative and forward thinking and misdirection. And yet when it comes to that he would just kind of be a dinosaur.
I have a feeling. Coach Reid isn't going to be doing any gambling when he retire. After he retires, I don't think he's going to be downloading the DraftKings app and betting on games. He doesn't seem like that kind of risk taker. He can draw up an offense. He can mess with you in the red zone all day long. But when it comes to maybe taking a chance, he didn't show me that last night.
But he recovered he played to his strengths.
I don't even want to say it.
I know what Peyton Manning said about halftime adjustments, but I have to think that the extended halftime helped. I mean, they had an answer for everything. They had the Eagles on their toes the entire second half. So it had to have helped. And the experience kicks in. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves with the Eagles because we're going to get into them, but they're going against a damn good quarterback, a damn good coach. It was an all-time Super Bowl right up until 2 minutes and change, Jim. And we have to talk about this. We have to.
I agree.
Okay, here's my. I want to hear. We don't even know what each other. Well, you probably know what I think. I don't know what you think about this yet.
No, we're usually good.
I don't know how you call that at that point of the game. I mean, I feel like in the NFL, so you remember how this works, right? Like every training camp, when I'm on the beat with the Green Bay Packers and the Buffalo News, same deal. Like the officials come to one of your practices, right? I remember Ed Hockley came to Green Bay once, and he actually had like a little press conference. And McGinn, I'll never forget. McGinn asked him a great question. He's like, Ed, sometimes when you announce a decision, a penalty, you're quite like emphatic with it. And he started laughing. He's like, yeah. So it was a great question. I forget. I don't even know his justification for being so animated, what it was, but
why he was so proud of it, like proud.
Yeah,
of it.
right. I mean, it's their chance to show off. Hey, I got the guns. Look at me. But they come every training camp and there's a point of emphasis for that season, right? Whether it's illegal contact for the corners, whether it's something in the trenches, there's always like a point of emphasis each year. And then in the exhibition games, what happens? There's flags all over the place because they're like, and even early in the season, even in September, flags all over the place just because they're trying to like beat down in your head. You can't do this. And then what happens? Everything kind of lets up over time. Like there's this progression to the mean, to reality, to sanity. Like we get to a place where, okay, it's football again by the playoffs. For the most part, in the case of Nickel Roby-Coleman, to the extreme, they let him play. Like you get in the playoffs and you let the players decide these games. You don't inject yourself into the competition. And in this game between the Chiefs and the Eagles, I feel like the officiating crew was mostly letting them play. I mean, I saw some grabbing and tugging, and I loved it. For the most part, they were letting them play. Now, there was a ton of inconsistency on what in the hell a catch is. I still don't know. I don't think anybody has a freaking clue. I mean, that's a whole conversation for a whole other day. Awful.
Agreed.
But in terms
Agreed.
of the stuff in the defensive backfield, unless I was just watching a different game, it felt like it was somewhat established. Okay, like you can play this way. And even James Bradbury, to a fault, he's he's just such a nice guy. He's not gonna stir the boat. He's gonna be accountable. I've I've,
Professional.
I've done a story on him in the past. He's a stand up as stand up gets. Um, he did say, look, yeah, I know I held him a little bit, and I was just gonna let it ride. I hope they didn't see it. And that's how it works with these corners, right? In the course of a game, they're talking to their coaches like, here's what you can get away with, here's what you can't, here's how they're calling the game. It felt so out of the ordinary for the type of game that it was and for the moment. Third down, a chance for Philly to get the ball back. Obviously, that's what we all want. If we're not cheering for one of these teams, we want Jalen Hurts to get the ball back. We want the dramatics. I admit that. But given everything, I don't think that we're sitting here on Monday morning bitching about the penalty that they missed if they don't call it, if that makes any sense. I don't think we're all up in arms. Oh my God, how could they miss that hold? I don't think Chiefs fans would have been that much. They would have said, you know what? As great as we were in the second half, we couldn't convert that third down, and then we had to get a stop, and we either could or couldn't. But the officials injected themselves into an all-time classic of a game, and it's predictable, it's pathetic, and it's going to keep happening again, sadly.
I can't disagree with anything you said, other than it was a penalty. And it's hard. I don't know. I don't have a great answer on this one because I agree with every single thing you said. Consistency is all we can ask for, I think, when it comes to officiating. And to your point, it looked like that type of play was getting kind of, you can do that today. The jersey tug is always going to make the official feel like he has to throw the flag because that's what everybody can see. Right? Everybody in the stands, everybody on TV can see the jersey tug.
Not the official that was closest, Jim.
So
he didn't throw it. Saying. It was an official.
They're saying it was on the third.
Timbuktu.
Well, he hit him. I mean, you could have called him for the hook or the jersey tug. I mean,
yeah.
Once again, tough. I don't want to get into it like that because I don't even want to defend anybody on it. I thought it was a penalty, but I love what you said. I don't think any of us would be complaining about it. But I can remember early on, I want to say it was the first drive after a 7-7, I believe, they hooked Juju. They hooked Juju and they didn't call it. I mean, it was an easy one to see. We all saw that was a PI.
Consistency.
That's a third. That was easy. We all saw that one. Everybody was like, "Oh yeah, that was a PI." They let it go.
I want my officials like I want my politicians. You know what? If you're an extreme leftist or if you're on the right side of the aisle, like at least be who you are, and we know who you are, and we know how your policies are going to come down. Like, don't be spineless, flip flopping. And that's the thing. We kind of thought we knew what type of game this was, and it wasn't. Now, here's the other problem too. It really wasn't even catchable. It wasn't. He just kind of threw it up there, right?
Which
like
makes it goes to your point even more. Like, we're not going to complain about that.
And also, don't we let these receivers and corners kind of jostle and go at it for a little bit before the route gets going?
Never ending debate.
Man, I didn't think I'd have any empathy for Philadelphia fans, but I do a little bit. But here's where I don't, Jim. Here's where I don't.
Yeah, I don't.
Here's where I don't. The defense was not good.
Agreed. You got beat by the better team. You're a great team, and you might see them again next year, like we all talk about. Who knows? But I don't feel bad for you knowing that what Mahomes did, gutting through that somehow. It's just incredible to me to play that position against that type of defense that gets after the quarterback.
Hey, what about Brett Veach and the Chiefs front office?
Oh, you know how we've talked. Yeah,
I guess we've talked about it, but
I mean, just as far as
Kadarius Toney.
So
hello, longest punt return in Super Bowl history.
You brought him up. As remember the other day you said, is that a guy that could have one of those guys we don't talk about? And you brought his name up, and I said he scares me to death because he's a wild card, because he's so gifted, but you just don't know if he's going to fumble, a drop, just a crazy play that you can't expect. But man, you see that talent. Coach Andy Reid, he has never been afraid. He has never been afraid to coach anyone.
Right.
Bill Belichick, same way.
I feel like if you're not taking these calculated gambles, so this is where we get to tap into your front office acumen, Jim, because you guys took a few chances.
Oh
But
yeah.
if you're completely unwilling to take a chance, you'll never play in this game.
Mm-mm.
You need some players with some baggage. You just do. And guess what? It might backfire. It might come back to bite you. And then you have to move on. But Andy Reid, almost to a fault, has always been willing to try something out. I mean, Kareem Hunt, they drafted him. He led the league in rushing. Eventually, they move on from him. I mean, you can go right down the list. Tyreek Hill is a conversation unto itself and everything he's been accused of. So I pause to just glorify it and say like it's every GM should be, handing out second chances like they're Willy Wonka golden tickets. But you do have to take it case by case, and you do have to take a risk here and there, because when it comes down to these Super Bowls, we just saw it. Kadarius Toney made the play of the game, 64-yard punt return. And this was a guy that we've praised Joe Shane and Brian Daboll to kingdom come on this podcast, and rightfully so. He's the coach of the year. That's a player that it's kind of crazy that any team couldn't find a spot for him. How does that not work out? Even though you inherited him, it was a Gettleman pick. Dave Gettleman's just lighting the cigar after seeing that, isn't he?
He may have been a lot this year with Barkley and Daniel Jones, at least showing a little life, even though I'm not
But I don't know. Like, I mean, you guys took some chances. Is there what's a risk that like worked out beautifully and one that you regret?
Well, I'll tell you who was a little. This is a tough one to say. I wouldn't say regret. I don't have regrets on the pick. Carlos Williams always is going to be one that was known. It was a known, but it was known. It wasn't a risk. We knew everything that we were getting. I hate to say that's the gambler, and sometimes in the front office, but when you make a pick, but hey, in the fifth round, if you're weighing things in the fifth round and you could have a chance to have the rookie of the year at running back, which he almost was, his kind of his history of who he was took over. I mean, hey, we saw what it could have been, and that's why we took the chance. But in the end, it didn't work.
Big, fast, explosive, was better than LaShawn McCoy for a few weeks there. For a few weeks, I remember being on that beat thinking, man, I'd get Carlos Williams the ball.
Your point was, he caught your eye. I mean,
that's the point. Obviously, you would take McCoy, but that's how talented he was for a little stretch.
Yeah.
And then things went off the rails, and he
goes off.
Man, I'll never forget OTAs, Jim, when he came back for OTAs. I love talking to Carlos. He's still welcome on this podcast. I want to get him on.
I know.
Always love talking to Carlos. I want to ask him about this, but I think all dads in the country have been through this at one point or another. His girlfriend, a fiance maybe at the time, was pregnant, right? He's having a baby, and said he just kept eating because he felt bad. And he looked like a different player. He looked like an offensive lineman when May rolled around, and his career was basically over at that point. This is right after his rookie season when he was incredible. I mean, maybe offensive lineman is a little harsh, but he was.
It's harsh, but
40 pounds heavier, 50.
I don't think it was that.
I want to say he was 260, Jim.
I'd have to go back and I'll have to ask Whale if he remembers. 260, that sounds realistic because
Carlos had some really nice things to say about Doug and Matthew Fairburn's story too, didn't he?
yes.
We still got to make this podcast happen. So, Carlos, do you still think Doug should drink bleach? Yes or no?
I mean, there has to be a way. That has to be an off season.
We've got time. We've got time. Let's do it.
That would be a good one.
I'll give Carlos this. And I'm obviously, Fairburn's one of my best friends, and it was an unbelievable story. And he got him to open up, and he kind of captured the essence of this just erratic personality, this immense talent. He's one of the great what ifs in recent Bills history. But I'll give Carlos this, like when that kind of blew up, and that was only one of the things he said. Maybe I remember him saying that he wanted Doug Whaley to drink bleach, and it was something else. Eat a dick, I don't remember what.
I think it was all that. Yeah,
there was a lot of stuff in there. He didn't say he was misquoted. He didn't say he owned it, and he apologized. He said I shouldn't have said it. And I think that's the next step for Carlos a year and a half later. We'll get him on the pod.
Listen, one thing he needs to know, anybody knows Doug Whaley, myself, let's just talk about it. It's all good. Everybody's competing. Everybody wanted it to work. We wanted it to work. We drafted him. Like, he has to understand that's a major thing. Like, you don't just throw away a draft pick. Like, we wanted this to work. That's sometimes the players don't understand that. Like, we're on your side on it. We're on your team.
I know.
So,
oh man. So that's a risk that was worth taking, and you would take it again. There were a lot of risks that panned out. I mean, Richie Incognito, nobody else in the NFL.
So that was
touch him with a 10-foot pole. Granted, his life kind of took every twist and turn imaginable, but for a period there, he was one of the best guards in the NFL after you acquired him.
No question.
So yeah,
he was great. Once again, and he owned things too. He owned things when they met, when Rex and Doug and Russ Brandon, when they were meeting with him and decided I wasn't involved in meeting with Richie and signing him like that. They did a great job with it. And Richie came up here and just played football.
Why don't we're going to end this episode, and part 2, we want to talk Eagles. We'll kind of preview the off season, touch on different things around the NFL. So thank you for listening to part 1. Mahomes is a Messiah, perhaps a descendant of Jesus Christ himself, some type of deity. Okay, that's a little extreme, but he's unbelievable. So that was part 1. Part 2, we're going to get into the Philadelphia Eagles, maybe a little bit of Buffalo Bills talk, kind of tie up some loose ends that we haven't had a chance to. So thank you very much, everyone. We'll catch you here around the... All righty, ladies and gents, thank you so much for sticking with us here. Go long with Dunn and Monis, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, golongtd.com. Make sure that you consider, at least give it a consideration, right? VIP membership. You get one of these Go Long hoodies, black with the blue logo, a signed copy of Blood and Guts, How Tight Ends Save Football, and access to all of our Zoom happy hours. Have a very special guest scheduled for this Friday night. The goal is, if not every week, every other week, to have somebody hang out with you over some beers on Zoom, and I want you to tell me who you would like to hang out with, because when you're a VIP, you need that VIP treatment. Ooh, that was catchy, Jim. I just thought about that one. And as always, we're fueled on the podcast by our friends at Fatty Beer Company. We're absolutely going to be doing some live shows through the off season in Orchard Park, Hamburg, or elsewhere. Okay, as promised, part 2 of our Super Bowl Bonanza Extravaganza podcast show. In part 1, we hit on all things Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Carlos Williams. Some would say that's all you need in life. God, I want Carlos to come on the podcast.
That is really a great way to sum up our part 1. Like, how would you not want to listen to that? Mahomes, Andy Reid, and Carlos Williams. Find another show that is teasing their show with those names.
And rate, review, and share. That's how we keep this podcast growing. All right, we want to talk Philadelphia on part two because this was an all-time Super Bowl classic up until the refs decided to inject themselves into the entertainment and let it be known that they're part of the party. They are, you know what? Sometimes these officials, it's like you're at a party and then there's just that friend of a friend of a friend who just kind of waltzes into the conversation and just starts like talking about nonsense, and it just kind of brings everybody down, right? Like we're here having a good time. We're BSing, we're telling stories, like nobody's judging anybody. And in waltzes that you don't know how they got into the party. You don't know who invited this guy. I don't want this guy here. Get him the hell out. And they just kind of start talking about it could be something very innocuous, something very boring, right? That you really just don't give, you just don't care. You just want him to get out. That's kind of how I view NFL officiating. They just kind of waltz into the party. And you just want to kick him in the ass and say, get out of here. You're not welcome. All right, we ranted on part one. So up until that point, the Eagles, I mean, Jalen Hurts, we can start wherever you want. I imagine we want to start with Hurts because
Please.
he was phenomenal. I mean,
Please.
he really was. I had his numbers here at the tip of my finger, and I've got all these. You know, you get to the end of the season on the laptop and you just have like windows open everywhere. I probably should do a cleanse. There's just Getty images and podcasts downloaded. And
no, I do know what you mean. I have extremely too many gambling Excel formulas.
Then you get to that point where you don't want to shut your computer down because you just feel like, oh, if I shut my computer down, is it going to start back up? All right, Jalen Hurts, 27 of 38 for 304 yards, a 103.4 rating, threw a touchdown, no picks, but also did his damage as a runner, obviously. 70 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground, just has a nose for the end zone. They really didn't have much of a ground game outside of Jalen Hurts, Jim. And as much as I was talking up Jeff Stoutland and this well-oiled machine of a run game, and it is. I mean, they can play any type of way.
No question.
They really didn't get much out of Kenneth Gainwell, Miles Sanders, and Boston Scott. 37 plus 8? You got 45 rushing yards on 17 carries out of those 3 players. None of them had a gain longer than 9. It really never got going, and that kind of affected things. But Jalen Hurts was so damn good, they still kind of did what they wanted to on offense. If Patrick Mahomes isn't Patrick Mahomes, if the official doesn't throw a flag in that situation, if Philly wins this game, we're all talking about Jalen Hurts, you know, punching in one of the all-time quarterback performances in this game, aren't we?
Yes, I'm trying to think where I want to start with Hurts because this has been a great year as far as studying him because it started in the first week it go along. I had to write about a guy that we really wanted to study more on. You know, is he good enough? Because the way that ended last year, it was not good. I mean, Hurts did not look great in some games last season where you still wondered, is he the guy? So when I watched him that first week of the season this year, it hit me the way they were using him. He was scoring on my system just like Lamar Jackson scores as far as how they were using him and how he is scoring his points for me were his special plays as a runner, but now he was making him as a passer as well, just like Lamar. And there you go. And he just remained consistent. He is now. So when we talked about, I always said, I think Lamar Jackson should go to the NFC because just get away from Mahomes. Guess what? You're going to have to go through this guy now because he is officially going to be a monster every year. It is sustainable as long as he stays healthy, because the running game is a huge part for Hurts to be this successful. But he's a complete leader. That team, they almost admire him. You can see the way those players play and look at him. And that's what we always talk about. When the players want to play for your quarterback, you got the right guy. It's like off the charts with him. I mean, you watch him, it's everything you want in a quarterback. It's just not Mahomes. It's different. Every quarterback's so different. but it doesn't matter how you get to the elite. Just be elite. He and Lamar are in that category where you're not stopping either one of them. As far as they're going to find, like, if you might slow them down in the run game, they'll find a way to beat you throwing. Hurts has developed. I'm sorry. The last thing. Hurts has developed his passing to the point like Josh Allen took that step from like almost year 2 to year 3. Hurts has done that where he is making those throws that just you shake your head on, like, hey, he wasn't doing that before. You didn't see that on tape before. He has not only worked on it, you've seen it enough where it's becoming consistent in who he is. And man, no moment will ever be too big for him.
Perfectly said, poignantly said. I could not agree more. The throw to Dallas Goedert stands out. That might have been one of the best throws I've seen in a Super Bowl.
I'm with you, man. He was. And there was nothing
for the sideline, right? They reviewed that one because he had a slight bobble, but corralled it. Even the H.A. Brown touchdown, right? I mean, you're giving your guy a chance to make a play. That's why you traded for
okay
A.J.
with
Brown.
those, right? Everybody
take
has
that shot.
You don't think Mahomes had some of those crazy jump balls to Tyreek Hill that were a 14-yard and Tyreek Hill took it 60? Like, receivers are allowed to make great plays too. The quarterback gives those great players a chance. How many times do we talk about Mitch Trubisky just throwing the ball out of bounds? Like,
exactly.
Give your guy a chance.
And that's why you want an offensive-minded coach, coordinator, quarterbacks coach, whoever's kind of running the show around the quarterback. You want him just like filling that quarterback's mind with such thoughts and such positivity and go for it, right? Like, like I don't want a head coach telling my quarterback to be conservative, to be safe, to mitigate disaster. Obviously, you don't want to turn the ball over, and it's emphasized during the week. But in the moment, no, take a chance, be bold, play fearless. Go for it on 4th and 2 when the season's on the line. Do all of those things.
All of it.
And that's what they did with him, especially in the first half. They believed in him. Nick Sirianni going for it on those 4th downs. He turned it into his kind of game there for a while. It was like, okay,
I love it.
It's on. This is how he's coached all year. And guess what? He's coaching like this in the playoffs. He's not just a regular season 4th down savant. He's doing it in the playoffs. So I was so impressed with Sirianni, so impressed with Hurts. They're not going anywhere. The defense let that team down. The defense was not good. But not to switch gears already, because I think you're right. I think Hurts, you look at the NFC, who knows? This offseason might be quarterback mayhem again, and we'll have quarterbacks changing conferences. As it stands right now, he's above and beyond better than anybody in the NFC. There's nobody close to Jalen Hurts right now. Dak, Kirk Cousins, Geno Smith. Oh, maybe Jordan Love if they would have played him a little earlier. And here's another point I want to make, Jim. Jalen Hurts, look at that draft. Look at that draft. Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa. They all went through ups and downs. They all had some rough moments, one way or another, whether it's a torn ACL or Tua and everything he went through with Brian Flores and a coach who doesn't even believe in him, treating him poorly. Justin Herbert's he was pretty dang good from the word go, but he went through a change of head coach, and now they're going through giving up one of the biggest leads in playoff history, blowing one thing. They've been like, and Jalen Hurts obviously went through a lot. The Carson Wentz relationship, and then the offense changing on the fly to what suits him, and then it opening back up with Sirianni. There's only so much that you can learn on the sideline with the clipboard in your hand, playing in the preseason, playing in mop-up duty against Philadelphia. It's been such a disservice on Green Bay's part to draft a quarterback in the first round. And, here we go again, right? It's becoming an Aaron Rodgers podcast out of nowhere. I'm just saying, like, watching Hurts, I just kept thinking, if Jordan Love played earlier, he probably goes through his ups and downs. They drafted him ahead of Jalen Hurts. He goes through some rough moments. He learns on the job. And he ends up relying on what makes him special, just like Hurts. Hurts is doing the kind of stuff that made him special in college now, and then some. So hopefully Green Bay does the right thing and turns the page and gives Jordan Love a shot. But they also it pays to develop a quarterback. I get the value in that, and I guess probably on this podcast I probably have pontificated on the value of that. But the more I watch Jalen Hurts, I'm like, you just want your quarterbacks to play at some point. Get out there, play, win some games, lose some games, go through some shit, and then it's just like parenting. And Tony Gonzalez made this point in the book too. Like in parenting, you don't want to just be a snowplow parent and like push all obstacles out of the way. You want your kids to go through some hard times because they're going to learn from those hard times. And actually, Quincy Avery, who's the quarterback coach for Jalen Hurts, he made that point on Twitter today. I was just tweeting at him about it. It makes sense. Like it's the same thing with quarterbacks. I think you want your quarterbacks to go through some harsh, hard times, maybe even in a rough market like Philly, because it's going to harden you. It's going to make you better.
There's nothing that hurts because he's already going through it in college, and nothing fazed him. So they're good.
Starts right there with Nick Saban benching him for Tua in the national championship.
Something did catch my attention though. That both coordinators in Philly could be leaving for head coaching jobs. Tyler, I think that is something that needs to be paid attention to with a young quarterback like Hurts, who is still developing, because we've seen it a little bit with Buffalo this year. And I think about the Saints teams that I worked for those years. I think about Andy Reid's staffs in Kansas City and Philly. Continuity, those guys didn't leave. At least for the stretch, at least for that like initial core run, those first 4 or 5, that window, that initial window. So I think if Philly would lose both of those. Now, I don't know much about I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying that would be something I'd pay attention to, that when we talk about that window and how hard it is, and you were right there to win that Super Bowl, it's so hard to get back. And it can be things you don't see coming, like both your coordinators leaving. You don't know what the effect that'll have. I'm not saying it's going to change much because the talent is insane, but you don't know. I mean, that's an adjustment. That's going to be an adjustment period. But
it's one of those points neither one of us would have made last year. I think we all assumed Brian Daboll to Ken Dorsey, seamless. It's what Josh Allen wants, seamless. But we don't know the dynamics of the room. Look, Brian Daboll, a reason that players love him, it's not that he coddles them. He's hard on guys.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows that balance. He knows when to push, when to pull. That's why he's coach of the year. He just gets the human element of the game. I mean, I don't know. That's not a knock on Ken Dorsey. I'm not in those meetings, but I do know like an Eric Bieniemy, he's kind of known for that too, right? Like he's known for being kind of harsh, kind of hard, like pushing his quarterbacks. That's where if he goes to Arizona, if he's the head coach for the Cardinals with Kyler Murray, who they literally have to put in his contract, don't play video games, like study the playbook. How is that going to work out?
Mm.
But I do think behind the scenes, because we saw some of it, it was I forget which game it was, but remember Mahomes and Bieniemy were going at it before halftime in a game recently. Like I think you do need some combativeness to get to a good point. You do need a coordinator or a quarterback coach kind of going at it, right? To find some answers. I think that's a big reason they're here, in addition to Reid being the best coach in football. So when that changes, whether you're in Kansas City, Philly, Buffalo, it's a feeling out period. You don't know what to expect. I think that's also why it just behooves you to hire an offensive-minded head coach, because you want the stability at the top offensively with your quarterback as long as you can have it, because that's where it starts. Am I wrong? I don't know. Like there's a lot of coaches getting hired right now.
Tyler, it's a hard question for me because I'm a believer in I'm not a believer in going for the offensive guy. I want the best guy.
That's right. We talked about your dream staff.
Yeah. So I when I talk about that, I don't necessarily disagree. There has to be some type of because to me the defense is just as important. that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think you can value the positions and drive. We all know quarterback is everything. And if you
Mm-hmm.
get the right quarterback, man, that's on you at that point then. Like, if you can't get the best out of the best, the most talented quarterback, then you're just not a good coach.
But I think you want an offensive minded head coach because that coach is going to be going for it on fourth and
But
one, fourth and two.
okay, now
They're going to be
that's
aggressive. They're going to think through the lens of I've got this quarterback, my foot's on the gas. We're trying to win the game. We're not trying to lose. We're not trying to lose by less points in this game.
that to me is just a philosophy thing, and that's something I would want to know in the interview. In fact, I would go through those situations. Fourth down, are you going for it? How much are you going to be going for it? What you want to know all that. So I think those are. I think to me that can be any. I don't think that's offense, defense. That
Yeah,
should be whoever.
right. Because Brandon
Almost a month.
Staley's a defensive minded coach, and he coaches games seemingly drunk at times, going for it on fourth down, and I love it. I love it. Uh,
I do too.
Not
I'm with you
literally
on the
drunk.
fourth down. I love it. Go for it.
I just feel like a defensive coach, if they've been in the game a long time, right? If they came up in the game in the 90s and the early 2000s, you just wonder, are they too jaded? I don't know what the word is. Are they still kind of thinking this is a different era? Because in this era, with these quarterbacks, against Mahomes, against Burrow, against Allen, against Hurts, man, you cannot be playing field position football. You just can't. Even
Agree.
Philly, look, even Philly, as much as we're praising Nick Sirianni, there was a fourth and two that they punted on late in the game.
That was funny.
Right? I get it. You're at your all right, now I gotta pull up the old game book again here. Bear with me.
No, I'm thinking. I'm laughing because it is so true though. It's there's always like an exception type play that stands out. It's like why, why of
I
all
know.
But I think I get it. They couldn't. It would have been
All
too
right.
quick of a touchdown almost if they
So
don't
this
get
would
it.
have been
I'm just trying to remember the
ESPN.com with
field
their
position.
automatic ads. Get out of here.
No, I
Okay.
was just trying to remember
Four,
that field position, the exact
fourth
field
and
position.
three. It's fourth and three. Or I'm sorry, 28-27 at this point. This
Yeah,
is right after the Kadarius Toney touchdown. So Philly's down by one,
yeah.
and their defense struggling to get stops. Fourth and three at their own 32-yard line. All right. So I get it. You're backed up. But do you go for it there? I don't know. That one I have a harder time being, as cavalier on. But in retrospect, you obviously would have gone for it because that's when Kadarius Toney has the 65-yard Super Bowl record return. And they score a touchdown to go up 35-27. So it's all drive to drive. It's feel, right? You have to have a feel for your team and your quarterback.
But
I
and
just would
then
prefer the head coach who's going to keep the foot on the gas. That's all.
and if they went for it and got it and went down the field, scored, then maybe that pass interference play never happens.
Completely. And guess what? If you don't get it and Kansas City scores, guess what? That's exactly what still happened.
There
Kadarius
you
Toney
go.
had the return and they scored.
Either way, because you weren't stopping them anyway.
The ball is in your hands.
You
You're in
weren't good.
control.
I mean, to that philosophy would be really, to me, that makes sense. You're not going to stop them whether it's a 70-yard drive or a 30-yard drive right now. So you might as well just go for a fourth and two because you're not
Oh man,
stopping them either way. I like
which
it.
is why if you're the Bills and
I'm
you've
with
got
you
a
on that.
chance for the double dip at the end of the first
Go,
half and you
go,
can't
go,
stop anyone and you can score and get the ball to start the third
go,
quarter, you
go.
don't pin them deep. I feel for Bills fans on that one. And then to just concede defeat on the fourth and two late in the game, thinking you're going to get two defensive stops in the fourth quarter. It's just as nuts. When you see this game with Mahomes and Hurts and they're just moving the ball at will and they're scoring, no coach in their right mind would punt on fourth and short when you can't get a stop in any type of these games.
It's just
Yet
you know
we've
what they
seen
say,
it out of this coach in consecutive years. So
Tyler. You know what they say in gambling. What a punt is: quiet quitting.
it is. It is. I'll
Gamblers
never.
hate punts and field goals. We hate them.
I can remember 1996, the first year I put on the pads for the KOA Spear Crush of the Bradford, Pennsylvania Youth Football League. So my dad did some work in PA, even though we lived in the Buffalo area. So I played my youth football
Yeah.
there. Our coach Tom O'Brien, I'll never forget. He said, "Look, kids." So I'm in third grade. He said, "Look, kids." He's explaining to us how the game works. You've got 4 downs to get 10 yards. Because when you get to fourth down, you can also punt. And I don't, he's like, we might have to punt in some of these games, but I don't like it because you're literally handing the football to the other team. And he had a football in his hands and he did the motion like you're giving it to the other team. So maybe that's why the way I am in third grade. My dad's the assistant coach. And yeah, I'll never forget that. Tom O'Brien. It's true. It's true as it was then. And the game has changed. Analytics have changed. The quarterback play has changed. So you're right. It starts with getting the quarterback, and then think through that lens, operate that direction.
But it goes, and you've said this so many times, and about the Bills specifically because we talk about them so much. But you just invested all your money into your quarterback, and it's 4th and 2.
2 yards.
Where'd you put the money?
2 yards.
I mean, to me, it's like if we're going to pay our quarterback this, yeah, I'm going down with our quarterback.
Yeah.
And not the other team's great quarterback. It'd be different if you're punting the ball to somebody you don't feel is like on fire, but you're punting the ball to.
Exactly. You're not punting the ball
No, I'm with you on this. I think
to
that needs
Chad
to
Henne
be.
here.
No, you're right. That's a major. That's one that you have to look back on for sure.
All right, so let's do it. Let's do this on this part too, Jim. Bills. We're
Yeah,
kind of naturally
yeah,
segueing
yeah. I'm with
into
you.
what our listeners are accustomed to hearing us blab about. Where do you even start? Right, they don't have money to really spend. You've got to make a decision on Tremaine Edmonds. You need weapons. You are probably going to need a safety. Who knows when you get Von Miller back? The offensive line really wasn't that great. Good, but not great. You're probably going to need a new running back. I would think Devin Singletary gets more money elsewhere. Is James Cook ready to be that guy? Where do you start if you're running the Buffalo Bills right now? And this is almost like a tease for future episodes, but we haven't really talked about it.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. Yeah, we'll ease into the Bills offseason because I need to think about a little more for specific things. Some things I thought about though with the Bills. I didn't like how they handled their receivers this year. As far as I felt like they got a little desperate at the end of the year with the Cole Beasley and John Browns, and there were just some strange, like, okay, we don't know what we're doing. We just don't have a rhythm right now, and that surprised me a little bit with the Bills receivers this year. Then the receiver coach leaves, Chad Hall, for a parallel job, correct?
Jacksonville Jaguars wide receiver coach contract was up, so either he was gently nudged out the door or he volunteered to
If
coach
contract
elsewhere.
was up, that means they didn't. That when you enter your last year, you assume that.
Hmm.
If you don't get extended or rolled over in the NFL, you assume you should be looking.
So is he a scapegoat?
No,
Hmm.
no, I
Players
don't
love
think
him.
so.
For what it's worth, I mean, Diggs, Emmanuel Sanders, Evan John Brown, all
Oh,
these guys who've come through.
I think there's more to. There's something. There's more that we don't know about, but I think he's proven that those players play. They know they all know. They all seem to always be on the same page. Route running. Josh Allen has a great rapport with those guys.
Yeah.
So I think I'd pay attention to how the Bills, how they come out with their receiving. Like, what's the receiving core going to be next year? I think the O line will be fine. I'm not worried about the O line. Running back, they invested in Cook. They need to find out about him. Is he good enough? But the investment's been made. Defensively, major questions. Major questions on defense for the first time. I think they have to really figure. We Hyde, Poyer, health, all that.
Mm-hmm.
Where are they at with contracts? I don't even know with all that. Tremaine Edmonds. We've talked about that. It's got to be a win-win for the Bills. They're not in a position to pay him.
I know. It's
So,
with the
and then
receiver
D-line,
thing.
they've invested in, and we've talked about it. Where are the results right now? But Von Miller's coming back.
When?
Good question. And when does Father Time kick in?
That was the risk. You sign a player to
Correct.
it's 6 years, 100 gajillion, but really it could be, even if it's a 3-year, 50 plus million, that's a lot of money. And you understand the risk. 33, now 34, going to be 35. This is the kind of stuff that happens with an agile pass rusher, as good as he was. I think the Bills didn't really think ahead at receiver like they could have. They could have made a trade, right? They could have done a Kadarius Toney type of signing and been aggressive. Yet they kind of waited just a little bit too long and then scrambled to get the band back together, Blues Brothers style, and Cole Beasley and John Brown. I mean, Cole Beasley's just playing pickup basketball all season. He had a cup of coffee with the Bucks, like he wasn't even playing. That's what you're relying on at that point. So Brandon Beane and the front office just weren't thinking far enough ahead in that department. However you want to, break the blame down. Obviously, we have the show with Isaiah McKenzie, and he has the killer training camp. Looks like 100-catch guy. Whether it's his role, a drop here and there, Josh Allen not seeing him when he's open. I mean, Isaiah was pretty open in that regard. It didn't work out like they thought it would. Gabe Davis had some really bad drops. I have a hard time even killing a Gabe Davis, though. I mean, for a 4th-round pick, he's been above and beyond anything they could expect. So it's on the front office. I mean, you need.
I like Gabe Davis. I agree with you. I like Gabe Davis.
I like him. I mean, if he's a third option, I want him on my team. Where he sneaks up on you in a playoff game.
Yeah, it's not that I don't like their. I mean, it just wasn't. The continuity didn't look right this year. It just didn't flow as well. And then when they just started patchworking it, that's when it didn't seem right to me. But
a screen pass would be nice. I don't remember the last time they ran a screen to a back. Yet the trade you did make, Nyheim Hines.
I mean, we're
an incredible talent.
Right now. I mean, this is one of the best offenses in the NFL. So I do feel like we're nitpicking a little bit.
We're nitpicking, but I think you have to like this is a Super Bowl window.
I agree.
This is an opportunity.
You know how I feel about that. I'm with you on that.
I think the fans should demand more. I mean, because you've got a chance to win a Super Bowl. But I don't even know where you start because you can't really spend. I think where you start, okay, to move it forward, be a little more optimistic here. Players can get better. Players can improve. Look at Philly's offensive line with Jeff Stoutland. They've just gotten better. He can take a C- player and make him a B+. Like if with the right coaching and the right system, a James Cook might become an explosive weapon for you down the road. Shakir, a receiver, showed a few things. Maybe he becomes a player. Maybe these linemen do develop a little bit. I don't know, but they do have to draft better. Like they've got to draft better than they've been drafting. That's for sure.
Yeah, we need to dive into that. I need to do more specific diving. We've hit on some of the major. I'd really need to look into that more before I would want to say anything. But we've talked about the major ones that I do think need to be addressed. I mean or you should be held accountable for.
Right. I think you know what? Draft weapons. If I don't even have any clue who the wide receiver is, I don't even care. You take a receiver. Take a receiver.
It's the way the rules are set up right now.
Yeah. And I would love to ask Sean, like, you get back in that playoff moment. Are there any lessons gleaned from watching these playoff games at home, when you do see a Sirianni going for it there, and you do see the ramifications for when you don't go for it, because I think that's going to be something that has to change if the Bills are going to get over the hump. When they get in these nut cutting time moments to play with the necessary testicular fortitude.
I mean,
they have if you don't, you're going to be Marty Schottenheimer, Marvin Lewis. You're going to be one of those coaches. I'm sorry. It can get better. I mean, we were talking about players improving, right? They want this player to improve, that player to improve. Well, the coaching has to improve in that department. My opinion. All right. What do you say, Jim? We've got time to talk about the Bills. We'll get into the Bills and all things NFL.
Fatty off season Bills special.
And again, I give Bills fans credit for, I think it's turning this offseason in terms of, yes, we're a good team. You know, we win these divisions. We've had reasons to celebrate, and you know, we go to games, and it's not just to like crash through tables. Like they're demanding more. It's time, right? Like, right. Is this window can pass? This moment can pass.
No doubt.
And they should. This is one of the more important off seasons in Buffalo Bills history. So we're going to cover it here at Go Along on the podcast, obviously, but also over at GoAlongTD.com with columns, with features, with Q&As. Try to give you fresh coverage that you cannot get anywhere else. And that is the beauty of being independent, Jim, isn't it? Unbound. So thank you for subscribing, everyone. And thank you for sharing with a friend. This is how we keep this thing growing. Share it with a family member, a friend. It's all word of mouth, no ads, no sponsors, no corporations. It's all about you. And we'd love it if you considered a happy hour because they're a lot of fun. Alrighty, that's going to do it for part 2 of our Super Bowl extravaganza. Thank you, Jim, for hanging out here on a Monday night. And thank you, listeners, for checking out the episode. We'll catch you next time.